Blood steams on the banks of the Anduin as the last Elendel stone sinks beneath the dark water. Arrows hiss like angry insects through the torn banners of Gondor, and a broken helm spins away in the current. Isildur runs, lungs burning, heart pounding, yet the ring on his finger quickens him, pulling him, whispering. Behind him, orc cries rise in triumph. Before him, in the reeds, something vast and unseen stirs the river as if the land itself recoils from the choice he's about to make. If you want more journeys into the darker paths Middle-earth could have taken, tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, which realm would you stand for in this timeline? Gondor, Rivendell, Rohan, or somewhere far from all of them? The river claws at his legs, cold as forged iron. Isildur staggers, half swimming, half stumbling, the current dragging at his armor. The weight of his mail hauberk promises death, but his hand is tight around the chain on his neck, and the one ring hangs invisibly against his chest. The orcs on the far bank howl in rage as he vanishes from sight, but they do not brave the deeper channel. Black feathered arrows vanish into the swirling water around him. He does not drown. The ring does not let him. His lungs, screaming for air, suddenly ease as if some unseen pressure grips his limbs and pushes him upward. His head breaks the surface downstream. He chokes, gasps, and reaches desperately for anything to hold. His fingers clutch at slick roots, and he drags himself into the reeds, coughing river mud. He lies there, shuddering, half in this world, half between cold and shaken, and very much alive. The night is windless. No elvish song comforts him. No herald calls his name. Only the soft lap of the Anduin and the distant fading cries of orcs searching a river already washing their quarry away. He reaches for the chain at his throat. The ring answers, not with words, but with a sensation, inevitability, like the slow, sure turning of the world. It is a weight that feels both terrible and right. Isildur pulls the chain into his fist, the invisible circle resting against his palm, and for a long time he does not move. On the western bank, his sons lie dead. On the eastern shore, his father falls again in his memory, crushed beneath Sauron's weight. The ring sits between those images, gleaming in memory, blackening in truth. He could still cast it into the river, let it sink into silt and silence, let his line end honorably in ruin. But he is the son of Elendil, last High King of the Dunedain, the heir of Númenor Thatwas, survivor of a city swallowed by the sea, and a father broken by a dark lord. He presses the invisible ring to his forehead, a motion almost like prayer. "Not yet," he whispers. The words taste like ash. In the dimness, a faint warmth runs from gold into flesh, and somewhere far beneath the foundations of Orodruin, something that had slept in baffled despair stirs like a dreamer to the touch of his own name. Isildur lives, and the world shivers on a different axis. Dawn over the gladdened fields is gray and merciless. The survivors of his guard, few, wounded, scattered, rally only because they find footprints and broken reeds and a strip of Gondorian cloak torn on a branch. Their captain, Elendur's friend since boyhood, follows that trail with numb determination, expecting to find only a corpse. Instead, he finds his king, kneeling on a gravel bank, hair plastered to his face, mud on his hands, eyes fever bright. "Lord Isildur!" the man cries, half in disbelief, half in despair. Isildur raises his head slowly as if pulled from far away. The captain sees something in his gaze that was not there before Dagorlad. Not only grief, that is expected, Not only the iron resolve of a commander still alive when his sons are not. No, he sees an absence, a small cold gap where some softer human thing has been carefully put aside and locked away. Behind that gap, something else watches. We march for Minas Anor, Isildur says. His voice is rough, flat. Those who can walk will walk. Those who cannot will be carried. Gondor is not left without king. Lord, the captain ventures, glancing back toward where the orcs still roam, should we not seek Imladris, or... Isildur stops him with a glance. Elrond would have me cast away my father blood price, he says quietly. He counseled me once, and I did not heed him. I will not crawl to his house now and beg his pardon like a whipped child. He does not touch the ring openly. Yet the captain notices that the king's hand often falls to his breast, as if confirming that something precious, something irreplaceable, is still there. The ring is, as the weary company limps south, the world bends around that unseen circle. Days lengthen, wounds knit with unnatural speed. Food seems to stretch farther than expected. Men who should die of fever instead wake after long black sleeps, speech slow, but strength returning. They call it the favor of the Valar, the last grace upon Elendil's line. Isildur does not correct them. At night, when the others sleep, he walks alone. He keeps the ring invisible on its chain, but sometimes he holds it cupped in his palm, sheltered from prying eyes. In those moments, the air seems sharper, nearer his skin, as if every mote of dust and grain of sand is suddenly conscious of him. He does not hear a voice. He hears many echoes, faint, overlapping impressions that slide along his thoughts. The smell of hot iron, the press of 1,000 bowed heads on a plain of ash, the taste of fear and obedience in the same breath. He sees unbidden a throne of black stone under a low ceiling and men in tall helms kneeling before it. He sees Númenor, not as it was in his youth, but as it might have been, wider, higher, crowned not with white towers but with black. He closes his hand over the ring until his knuckles crack. The images do not go. When they reach the outlying watchtowers of Gondor weeks later, the sentries cry out and run to open the gates. The sight of their king, alive, brings joy like sunrise to faces worn thin with waiting. Yet when Isildur passes through, a chill sneaks after him like a shadow through sunlit streets. In Minas Anor, the white tree stands still, bare and lifeless. Its branches scratch at a sky between winter and spring. Isildur stands before it with his hand clenched on the chain beneath his tunic, and the silence in that courtyard is deep. His surviving son, Valandil in distant Imladris, is yet a boy. Arnor lies far away across leagues of wild country. Gondor is his for this moment in truth and fact. The White City bends its knee to a king who has looked Sauron in the eye and taken his heart's secret. The ring is patient. It does not press him to rash moves, not yet. It lets him bury his dead and speak words of honor over empty graves. It lets him pace long balconies at midnight, the wind tugging his cloak as he weighs in his mind Elendil's banner against the vision of a different standard, black with a single golden eye. He never quite sees it fully, for the ring now is not the ring of Barad-dûr. Its master's body is destroyed. His will is a broken gale, scattered. What remains in this circle of gold is narrower, more focused, at once weaker and more insidious. It does not think in words. It hungers in directions. Sauron's hatred of Númenor is deep, but deeper still is his contempt for the weakness of men. That scorn remains, coiled around a purpose that has not changed: subjugation, order, dominion, through fire if needed, but fire is only one instrument. In Isildur, it finds something new. Not a thrall, not easily a rival, a ruler of men taught in Elendil's wisdom, scarred by the downfall, schooled in war against the enemy, and yet marked by pride like any son of Westernesse. A man who looks at the broken fields of Mordor and thinks against his own conscience. What if such power served the West, not opposed it? When he thinks that, the ring warms. He does not throw it away. Seasons turn. Gondor stabilizes under Isildur's iron hand. He rebuilds Osgiliath's broken quays, strengthens the garrisons of Ithilien, and sends captains north to restore the roads to Arda. To his followers, he seems tireless, driven by some inner flame that neither grief nor age can quench. Young soldiers whisper that their king does not sleep. They are not entirely wrong. Isildur's dreams are fevered and bright. He sees ships again on a dark sea, black-sailed, cutting through storm without fear. He stands on the prow, and the horizon before him is red, not with sunset, but with smith fires, forges unending. On waking, he pours that intensity into law. Criminals, once judged with a measure of mercy in the name of the valor, find justice harsher now. Exiles from the war, Easterlings, Haradrim slaves captured on the battlefields are marked not as enemies to be released or ransomed, but resources to be organized. In the streets of Minas Anor, people eat. The markets are full. The walls are repaired. Yet watchmen begin to notice more cloaked figures in the alleys. Scribes note more edicts bearing the king's personal seal written in his hand in the small hours. And in the great hall, under the banner of Elendil, Isildur orders something that makes even his most loyal counselors exchange uneasy glances. He commands in secret the careful salvaging of Sauron's libraries. Men slip into the Black Land in small silent companies, through culverts and hidden passes known only to those who fought long in the war. They carry back not trophies, not gold, but scrolls and tablets, leather-bound volumes written in scripts that make their eyes ache to see. Knowledge is power, Isildur says to his steward one night as they stand over a long table covered in maps and parchments. The lamps burn low. Outside, thunder rolls over the Efelduath. These are the tools he wielded against us. If we do not understand them, how shall we prevent another such darkness? My lord, the steward answers slowly, some of these writings bear a presence. The lore masters report unease, even dread when they handle them. Then let them handle them with gloves, Isildur snaps more sharply than he intends. After a moment, he sighs. His hand strays unconsciously to his breast. We cannot blind ourselves and call it virtue. The steward bows his head, yet as he withdraws, he glances back once, and the look in his eyes is troubled. In Imladris, far from Gondor's stone and smoke, Elrond Halfelven stands on a balcony in the falling dusk, watching the stars kindle. He feels it, a tension in the air, a note of discord in the great song. A presence that should have dimmed with the Dark Lord's fall, yet has instead grown more distinct, like a flame banked but concentrated. Galadriel, far in Lorien, feels it as well. In the mirror of her thought, she sees a man standing before a dead tree, with his hand on his heart and a shadow at his back that is not his own. Elrond, she says when they meet months later, beside a small fire in a sheltered glade of Imladris, you told him to destroy it. I did, Elrond replies, staring into the flames. He would not. He named it a weregild for his father. He is Elendil's son, Galadriel says. Not so easily bent, nor easily broken, Elrond answers. But there is no comfort in his tone. You know the rings. You know that the one is not as the others were. Through them you preserve, restrain, defend. Through it he does not finish, he does not need to. It is silence that worries me, Galadriel says. I feel no great eruption of evil, no storm, only a shifting. Men's hearts leaning. The storm may come later, Elrond murmurs. You see farther than I. Sometimes far sight shows too much and not enough, she replies. What do you intend? Elrond looks east. I will write to Isildur, he says. One more time. The letter takes weeks to reach Minas Anor. By the time Isildur reads it, much has changed. Gondor is not the realm it was at the war's end. Its armies are larger, swelled not only by proud Dunedain and faithful men of the White Mountains, but by conscripted Easterlings and Haradrim, branded and reorganized into auxiliary cohorts. They drill in the fields beneath the city, their foreign tongues slowly beaten into Sindarin commands. In the higher tiers, murmurs circulate of a new kind of officer, men who do not seem to tire, whose judgments are inflexible, whose eyes see through excuses. They rise quickly, these crown wardens, appointed directly by the king to oversee matters of internal order. None know it, but each of these men wears hidden a small band of black metal on the inside of his arm. Isildur found the design in one of Sauron's tablets, proto rings, lesser devices of will binding, once used on certain favored captains of the Dark Lord. They are not rings of power, not truly. They cannot give speech to stone or cloaks to shadows. They only bind loyalty, reduce hesitation, firm the hand against disobedience. He has them forged in secret beneath the citadel, in a chamber warded against prying eyes. He shackled his servants with these, he says once to himself as he turns one of the bands in his fingers, watching the dim lamplight crawl over its surface. I will honor my captains with them. They will be free from doubt, from fear. The ring on his chain hums almost imperceptibly in agreement. Elrond's letter is simple, courteous, direct. It speaks of shared victory and shared loss, of the burden of memory, of the slow healing of the world. It ends. I beg you, as one who has seen both the great pride and the great doom of Númenor, consider once more the counsel you refused upon the brink of Orodruin. Cast away the last weapon of the enemy while you yet may. For you are wise and strong, but even the wise do not safely bear that which was made to master all will but one. Isildur reads it alone. He sits in his private chamber, the balcony doors open to let in the smell of rain on stone. The city mutters faintly below, alive with night sounds. He reads the words twice, 3 times. Then he laughs, a short, harsh sound that surprises even him. Bear, he mutters. He takes the ring from his tunic and lets it become visible in his palm. The gold gleams faintly in the lantern light, marked by that single fine line of script like a scar. Do I bear you, or do you bear me? A whisper of cold thought curls around his question, turning it. Do they bear you, these others? The ring seems to ask. These elves who speak of doom and counsel, but did not stand beneath Sauron's hand when it crushed your father? Who did not see their homeland pulled into the sea for daring to reach west? Enough, Isildur says aloud, closing his fist. He thinks of Elrond's face in the firelight of Orodruin. The elf lord's eyes had been full of something like pity, as if Isildur were a child, as if Númenor's scion did not understand what he held. You did not trust me then, Isildur whispers, to memory and to letter. You do not trust me now. So be it. He takes up quill and parchment. His reply is courteous and distant. He thanks Elrond for his concern. He speaks of the ongoing work needed to secure Mordor's borders, of the scattered remnants of Sauron's servants, of his duty to both Arda and Gondor. He says nothing of the ring. When he seals the letter, wax cooling under his signet, the decision is made. He will not be counseled from afar. If the elves wish a hand in the shaping of Middle-earth's new age, they may come to his halls and parley as guests or advisors, but not as wardens of his conscience. He is king. The years glide forward, and the shape of his kingship hardens. In Arnor, word of Isildur's policies filters north. Valandil, now grown to young manhood, watches messengers arrive in Annúminas, bearing scrolls packed with decrees, standardization of currency between the realms, shared levy in times of war, the establishment of a high tribunal that answers only to the king's person. At first, he obeys without question. He is his father's son, raised on tales of Elendel's wisdom and Isildur's courage. Elrond's house gave him kindness and lore, but it is to Gondor that his lineage calls. Yet, as the edicts grow more invasive, mandatory census of all able-bodied men, compulsory service terms extended, the appointment of crown wardens even in northern towns far from Mordor's shadow, unease spreads in Arnor's councils. One evening, the firelight in Annúminas flickers over worried faces. "Your father asks a great deal," one of Valandil's older advisors says carefully. "We swore fealty, yes, but we are not children. Our own customs, our own freedoms. He seeks to strengthen us," Valandil replies, but the certainty in his voice is thinner than he would like. "Perhaps," the man allows. But strength can become weight. Weight can become chain. When was the last season your father came himself to the north? Valandil looks down at the sealed letter in his hand. Not in many years. He has received missives, commands, advice, but not the man he remembers kneeling to embrace him before leaving Rivendell. Eyes still red with the loss of Elendur and Eretan and Sirion. Time and rule have put distance between father and son. Valandil goes to Imladris to seek counsel. Elrond receives him with a grave smile, the lines at the corners of his eyes deeper than before. They walk beneath beech trees, the Bruinen murmuring nearby, autumn light slanting gold through leaves. "My father remakes the world," Valandil says at last, frustration and admiration warring in his tone. He breaks the remnants of Sauron's power. He binds the east with treaties. He raises roads and watchtowers. Yet the more he builds, the more afraid my lords become of him, of Gondor. "And you?" Elrond asks. Valandil hesitates. "I fear the shadow that clings to his name," he says. "Not in his deeds. Those by and large are wise. But there is a hardness in them now, a lack of trust. It is as if he believes that only by his hand can all be set right, that all other wills must bow, else fall to chaos. That only force holds the world together." Elrond listens, saying nothing. The river runs on. "Has he spoken to you," Elrond says after a long pause, "of the ring, your birthright, some would call it?" "No," Valandil answers, "not once. I have not seen it since he rode from here the last time, long ago." Elrond nods slowly. "There are currents you do not see, Valandil," he says. "Your father bears a weight few can imagine. But that weight is not only grief and responsibility. It is a will other than his own that was made to command kings." "And you think it commands him?" Valandil demands. His hands clench at his sides. "He is not a puppet." "No," Elrond says calmly. "He is a man, the greatest of his people, perhaps, but still a man. The shadow does not need puppets when it can offer partnership." They stop beneath a birch whose leaves tremble in a slight breeze. What would you have me do? Valendil asks quietly. Defy him? Take from him what even you could not persuade him to give up? Elrond's eyes are sad. I would have you be wary, he says, and I would have you remember that loyalty is not blindness. Your love for your father may yet be needed to save more than just his soul. Far to the south, in the bright courts of Minas Anor, Isildur stands on his balcony looking east. The Ephel Duth rise like teeth against a red sky. In the basin of Gorgoroth, work fires flicker, Gondorian banners flying over black pits where once orcs toiled. Now men labor there, prisoners and volunteers alike, breaking down the last of Sauron's forges, salvaging steel, reshaping his war machine into Gondor's armory. He has forbidden the worship of the dark. Temples to Sauron are torn down. The Nazgul are scattered shadows, their rings still in elvish hands. Orodruin is watched by a permanent garrison, its passages sealed save for a few small, tightly controlled access routes. Mordor, under Isildur's command, is no longer a threat. It is a resource. He tells himself, this is justice, turning the enemy's realm to the good of those it once sought to ruin. The ring at his breast grows warm in the sunset. His dreams grow bolder. He dreams of all men united under a single code, a single law, a single hand, of orcs hunted to the last, of trolls slain in their dens, of no shadow in any valley that has not first bowed to the banner of Westernesse. He sees the Harad under white ships, the east under tall towers. He sees no more petty kings, no more fickle oaths. Peace, he thinks in those dreams, ordered and unending. Waking, he calls his council. We have secured Mordor and the lands about it, he says, a map of Middle-earth spread before him. His finger traces the curves of the Sea of Númenórean, the razored line of the mountains. Yet beyond, in Khand and Rhûn, lie tribes that once answered to Sauron's call or profited by his shadow. If we leave them unbound, they will fester. If another darkness rises, they will answer again. One of his senior captains, a man of Gondor who fought beside him on the slopes of Orodruin, frowns. You speak of expansion, my lord, he says. Conquest. Isildur's jaw tightens. I speak of security, he replies. We may offer alliance where it is accepted. Where it is refused, we cannot simply trust to honor among strangers. The age of scattered realms and private wars is ended. Either they join us, or they stand against us. I will not leave a wilderness in which another Sauron may sow. The hall murmurs. A young commander, newly risen, a crown warden with hard eyes, steps forward. You are the High King of men, he says. Should not all men look to you? Isildur hears the echo of his own unspoken thought and feels, strangely, both a thrill and a flicker of unease. Yes, he says, they should. The campaigns begin as protective expeditions. Gondor sends envoys east with rich gifts and generous terms, trade, mutual defense, recognition of local rulers, in exchange for oaths of fealty to Isildur and garrisons of Gondorian soldiers in key locations. Many accept. The memory of Sauron's ruthlessness and the sight of his banners trampled beneath Elendil's star make Gondor's proposal the lesser fear. Others do not. In those lands, white banners are followed by black smoke. On the plains of Khand, cavalry thunder across dry grasses as the sun beats down. Isildur himself rides with them, mail gleaming, the ring invisible on his finger now, worn more often, used more freely. Its weight, once alien, has become familiar, like a sword hilt worn smooth by years of battle. When his horse stumbles in a hidden dip, his reflexes are faster than any man's should be. He moves before thought, before training. The world slows, each falling grain of sand around him visible, he wrenches the beast upright, avoids the spear that would have found his heart, kills the man who held it in a single, fluid stroke. After the battle, when his captains speak in awed tones of his almost inhuman grace, he laughs and says, "Age has not dulled him yet." In private, he stares at his hands, flexing them, and wonders where his strength ends and another's begins. The conquered lands feel at first a strange mixture of relief and resentment. Gondorian law brings stability. Raiders are driven back. Trade routes are patrolled, but taxes rise. Sons are drafted into far-off wars. Old chieftains must kneel before a foreign king, lips shaping Quenya names that sit ill in their mouths. In a dusty village on the edge of the east, a young woman watches her brother marched away under a white tree she has never seen, to fight enemies whose names mean nothing to her. They say he is a just king, her mother murmurs, wringing her hands, the one who slew the Dark Lord. The girl stares at the road where her brother vanished and feels no difference between one distant master and another. Whispers begin in such places, whispers of a Numenorean tyrant, of a new empire rising from the bones of the old, of a power that doesn't merely protect but claims, doesn't merely rule but owns. Those whispers carry slowly to strange ears. In Dol Guldur, still a haunted hill, but not yet Sauron's chosen stronghold in this timeline, a shadow coalesces around the bitter will that once wielded the ring. Sauron, diminished, bodiless, spends long years probing at the world like cold fingers seeking a crack. He feels the ring not in the west, where he once battled Elendil, but everywhere. Its will has seeped outward, diffused through men under Isildur's banner, a network of lesser bindings and hardened laws that all trace back, in some unseen way, to the king on his high seat. He is shut out of it. He rages in the dark like a dispossessed landlord. Had Isildur been weak, it would have been simple. Sauron would have poured himself into the man, hollowing him out from within, riding him like a steed into the heart of elven realms and men alike. But Isildur is not hollow. He is full of grief, of pride, of love for his people, twisted gently into possessiveness. The ring has adapted. It has not broken him, it has grown with him, like a climbing vine tagging along the trunk of a sturdy tree, guiding its reach toward certain directions. In doing so, it has rooted itself so deeply in his being that Sauron, from outside, finds no easy purchase. He can no longer simply dominate. He must tempt. He begins then to send dreams. In the depths of some exhausted sleep after a day of judgments and war plans, Isildur finds himself once more upon a high cliff above a gray sea. The wind is cold, biting. Waves crash far below on jagged rocks. Ahead, out over the water, the sky is split by a dim, straight line of light, so faint it might be imagination. He recognizes it, the straight road. He stands on the edge, fingers clenched on unseen stone. Behind him, on a shore of ruin, the towers of Númenor burn. Ahead, beyond that vein of light, lies something he has never seen, only yearned toward, the land denied to men, Aman, the West. In the dream, a voice speaks. It is not in words, he knows it is in longing. You wanted justice, it says, for your father, for your people. They forbade you the blessed realm. They punished men for daring to claim their due. Yet look, you have built your own West here, your law, your strength, and still they judge you. Isildur does not answer. He feels in the dream a familiar weight on his hand. You could have had that light, the voice murmurs, if they had not been so jealous. They cast your land into the sea to keep it for themselves. Will you not then keep what you have taken from them? Will you not show them that men do not bow forever? He wakes with his heart hammering and the taste of salt on his tongue. In the pale light before dawn, he stands at his window. A gull wheels by, crying. The white tree's dead branches scratch faintly. "Is this your doing?" he whispers, fingers closing around the ring. It is cold now, like metal left long in snow. He could throw it away. He imagines it sometimes in such moments, walking alone to Orodruin, dismissing his guards, slipping through the watcher posts under some guise of inspection, standing once more before the cracks of doom, arm drawn back, hand open. But when he plays that image out in his mind, the world beyond becomes void. What is left of him without this burden? A weary king, aging, mortal, Gondor unbound, fracturing into warring factions. The East, unruled, turning again to some future darkness. The ring does not show him other possibilities. It lets one path loom. He does not go to Orodruin. In time, the elves notice more than a faint disturbance. Galadriel's mirror, when she gazes into it, shows not only Isildur, but the lands he has touched. Lines of roads and systems of law spreading like veins, pulsing with a kind of rigid vitality. In Lorien, the very trees seem to draw back a little from the images, as if in instinctive dislike. "It is order," Celeborn says at her side, watching. "Better than chaos, surely. Order at the edge of a sword," Galadriel murmurs. "He brings a peace of sorts. Yet see how much of it sings, and how much merely obeys. Elrond, too, sees signs. Refugees began to trickle into his valley, Easterlings who have broken their service oaths, Haradrim merchants who balked at new trade levies, even discontented Gondorians who found that dissent, once tolerated, now carries sudden, sharp penalties. One autumn, a Gondorian lore master arrives with a chest of scrolls. "I was keeper of the second library beneath the citadel," the man says, kneeling before Elrond, his hands shaking. The king ordered certain texts studied, not destroyed, not locked away, studied for defensive purposes. When I voiced concern, I was relieved of my post. A warden took my place, one of these new officers who speak always of necessity and never of doubt. He lifts the lid of the chest. Inside are copies, carefully made in secret, of some of the darkest of Sauron's surviving lore. Treatises on domination, on the crafting of fetters that bind not only body but will, on the subtle art of bending thought through symbol and ritual. Elrond feels a chill even before he touches them. "Isildur studies these?" he asks. "Not always himself," the lore master says, "but at his command. He says we must know the enemy's ways to guard against them. And yet, some of the new laws, they echo phrases from these pages. Structures of command, hierarchies. It is as if Gondor slowly becomes what it once fought. Elrond looks eastward through stone and cloud. At what point, he wonders aloud, does a defense against tyranny become its mirror? In the north, Valandil receives a letter that is not a decree. Written in his father's hand, it arrives not with a company of wardens, but with a single trusted rider. Its tone is both intimate and formal, as if Isildur himself is unsure how to speak plainly anymore. "Valandil, my son, long has it been since we last looked upon one another. Forgive me, the weight of rule has been heavy, yet my thoughts have often turned north. You rule Arnor well by all reports. I am proud. These are dangerous times. Though Sauron is cast down, his servants are not all accounted for. Some of the Nazgul remain at large. Dark cults stir in hidden places. The East resents our presence. I ask now not in command, but as father to son, be on your guard. Trust not all who come with smiles, and though you may hear whispers that your father has grown hard, know that all I do to secure your inheritance, and that of all men. One day, when these labors are less, I will come north, and we shall speak face to face. Until then, remember who you are. Isildur, son of Elendil, High King Valandil, reads it a dozen times. He feels both comforted and unsettled. He sends back words of filial respect and a single, cautious request. Father, he writes, may I not visit you? It is long since I have seen Gondor, and longer since I have seen you. Let me come with a small company in humility to learn from your court and your counsels. Perhaps then those who fear distance between our realms will be reassured. Weeks later, the answer comes. It is graciously phrased. It postpones. There is unrest in Khand, a new treaty in Harad, a rumored gathering of orcs in the misty mountains that requires dispatch of troops. Soon, it says, soon. Valandil folds the letter with careful hands. Elrond's earlier words echo in his mind. Your love for your father may yet be needed. In Minas Anor, Isildur sits alone with his ring. He finds himself increasingly impatient with contradiction. Once, he would have listened long to counsel, weighing, balancing. Now, though he still hears his advisors, their objections feel obstructive, narrow, cowardly. Can they not see the vision? A world united, scars of war healed, no more waiting on the whims of distant Valar or the caprices of petty kings. In that vision, his own figure stands at the center, but he tells himself this is only because someone must. Could not another do this? He asks the silence, testing himself. The silence answers not in words, but in conviction that arrives complete. No, no one else has your right, your blood, your insight. You have seen both the heights of Númenor and its fall. You, uniquely, can thread the needle between arrogance and despair. When he doubts, the ring buoys him. When he is cruel, it justifies. When he falters, it steadies. He does not notice the slow narrowing of his mercy. One winter, a riot breaks out in the lowest circles. It is overgrain, harsh rationing after a bad harvest, exacerbated by the demands of armies abroad. The crowd is mostly poor. Dock workers, washerwomen, apprentices. Someone throws a stone at a warden. The warden's men respond with batons. By dusk, 3 wardens are dead, trampled, and a dozen rioters lie bleeding on the cobbles. In the throne room, Isildur listens to conflicting reports. There are calls for clemency, most simply wanted bread. There are calls for severity. If rebellion is not crushed, the city may burn. His instinct, old and buried, is toward measured response. Find the ringleaders, show strength, but also mercy, remind the people that he is not their enemy. But another impulse rises, faster. If they question you now, at this stage, imagine when true trials come. Imagine the orcs at the gates, the east restless, and your own streets uncertain. They must understand that your word is not suggestion. His judgment is swift. The ringleaders are hanged. Whole districts are placed under curfew. More wardens are appointed from veterans of Mordor's campaigns, men hardened by blood and distance. The riot does not repeat. People mutter occasionally, but they do so behind closed shutters. From the White City, this looks like stability. From a small house near the lower gate, where a mother lights a candle every night for the son who swung from a hastily built gallows, it looks like fear. Such stories travel. They reach eventually not only the elves and the frightened, but other men who have long resisted both Sauron and Gondor alike. In the Riddermark, still a young people, their name not yet fully fixed, Eastern horse lords watch Gondor's movements warily. They owe Isildur their survival. Many fought beside his captains against orcs. Yet they see Gondor's banners on more horizons every year, its emissaries speaking more insistently of integration and less of alliance. In Dale and among the Northmen, tales of a king with unaging hand who sees too much, knows too much, decides too much, inspire both awe and unease. In Lindon, Círdan the shipwright speaks softly to Gil-galad's surviving captains. "Our time wanes," he says. "We have long guided, advised, nudged men rather than ruled them. Now one of them wields a power we once feared in Sauron. Do we stand back and let this new thing bloom unchecked? Or intervene at the risk of war with those we sought to protect?" "Intervene how?" another elf asks, weary. "He has done us no open ill. He hunts orcs. He breaks dark cults. His ships still bear friendship to our harbors. If we move against him, are we not the aggressors, the very tyrants we accuse him of becoming?" Galadriel's answer, when asked, is oblique. "There is a poison that kills swiftly," she says, "and one that merely dulls the mind while the limbs appear strong. The first inspires immediate reaction. The second is harder to name as enemy." "And which is this?" Círdan presses. "I do not yet know," she admits. "Perhaps neither, perhaps both." The decisive turn comes not in Gondor, nor in Mordor, nor in any grand palace or council hall. It comes in a narrow cleft in the misty mountains, under a sky tattered with dark clouds. A band of orcs, one of countless remnant groups that have refused to fade fully with their master's fall, have been tracked by a mixed company of Gondorian wardens and northern rangers. Valandil himself, seeking closer understanding of his father's new officers, has joined the hunt. The skirmish is brief, brutal, fought among slick rocks and stunted pines. When it ends, most of the orcs lie dead, greenish blood soaking into snow. One, wounded in the leg, tries to crawl away. A young northern ranger moves to finish it, spear raised, his face a mix of disgust and reluctant duty. He has heard tales of orcs since childhood. He has never seen one so close. "Wait," a warden says sharply. He steps forward, black band on his inner arm hidden beneath leather. "Hold it," he orders. "We have questions." They bind the creature roughly, drag it into the lee of a boulder. Valandil watches, frowning. "What could this thing tell us that we do not already know?" he asks. The warden meets his gaze, or rather almost meets it, then lowers his eyes with a practiced humility that somehow feels like calculation. "My lord," he says, "each of these vermin may carry tidings from the dark places they breed. Roots, numbers, signs of new powers arming them. The king has authorized methods to make them speak." He opens a small case at his belt. Inside are tools, too many tools for mere interrogation. The mountain wind bites. A cloud passes over the sun. Valandil hears his heartbeat, once, loud in his ears. "And if they do not speak?" he asks quietly. The warden smiles thinly. "They will," he says. In one language or another, the orc, though wretched, flinches. In its yellow eyes, Valandil sees, not humanity, never that, but fear, raw and immediate, helplessness. The same helplessness he has seen in human prisoners taken by raiders, in villages caught between rival lords. He steps forward before he quite knows he means to. "No," he says, "we end it. Now. This creature is evil, yes, but we do not become worse in the name of righteousness." The warden's jaw tightens. "With respect, my lord, the king himself. I am the king's son," Valandil says, voice sharpening. "And I speak with my own authority in this matter. Kill it, cleanly." Then we move on. The northern ranger, who has done little more than follow orders thus far in his young life, looks between them, swallowed. He has heard rumors of wardens who answer only to Isildur. He has also heard tales of Valandil, who rides with his men and eats at their fires. He thrusts his spear down. The orc dies with a choked snarl, more like animal than man. The warden stares at its corpse, then at Valandil. There is something in his eyes now, not mere irritation, not fear of disobedience, but a cold assessment, as if measuring an obstacle newly revealed. "As you command, my lord," he says. He bows. Days later, when their party returns to Minas Anor, a report precedes them. Isildur reads it in his chamber, the lamplight painting deep hollows under his eyes. "Refuse to allow interrogation authorized under Decree 7, the neatly scripted lines say. Prioritize mercy over intelligence gathering, risk the safety of our forces for the comfort of a single enemy." He folds the parchment slowly. Valandil stands before him, waiting. He looks older than when Isildur last saw him, and yet still young, still capable, Isildur thinks, of believing that right decisions always feel clean. "I spared him a stain," Valandil says before his father can speak, "and spared Gondor one more step down a road you do not need to walk." Isildur's jaw works. "You were not at Dagor, lad," he says. His voice is soft. "That is more dangerous." "No," Valandil replies, "but I have seen the scars it left." Isildur's hand tightens on his chair. "You do not know," he says, "what these creatures are capable of, what they have done, what they will do again if we let them crawl back into shadows. You are young. You think the war is a story. Finished. I think," Valandil says carefully, "that if we break every limit in the name of safety, we may win every battle and still lose something greater, our own souls." The word hangs in the air between them. Isildur feels for a moment a sharp, stinging clarity, as if someone has thrown cold water in his face. Soul, he thinks of the man he was on the fields of Gorgoroth, of the choice he made on the slopes of Orodruin, of the first time the ring warmed in his palm like a living coal. He thinks of the hanging rioters, of the black bands on his wardens, of the orc on the mountain shivering in the snow. The ring, sensing danger, presses back with sudden, fervent reassurance. "You have done what you must. The world is safer. He is naive. You cannot let love blind you. You are so close." "Father," Valandil says quietly, seeing the battle in his father's face, "take it off. End this before you cannot hear me anymore." Silence crashes down like a dropped curtain. For a heartbeat, 2, 3, Isildur sways. He sees, quite vividly, a road, not the straight road, vanishing into forbidden light, but a path of stone through the Ephel Duath, leading up to a mountain whose heart still glows. He sees himself walking it, cloak whipped by a sulphurous wind, ring in hand. He sees himself standing at the edge, this time truly alone. No Elrond, no Círdan, no one to witness or judge. He sees his hand open. He sees the ring fall. He sees stillness. After that, only uncertainty. Behind that image, another clamors. A world fractured by his absence, undone by 1,000 small men making 1,000 small compromises. Petty kings rising, dark cults slipping through cracks. Sauron reforming unhindered with no great power to stand against him. He hears again distantly a dream voice. "Will you not show them that men do not bow forever?" "I cannot," he says hoarsely. "Not now. Too much depends." Valandil's shoulders slump, as if something within him has broken with a soft crack. "Then you are lost," he whispers. Isildur's hand flashes out before he has decided to move. "Guards," he says. The wardens enter, their faces expressionless. "Take the prince to the north wing?" Isildur says, his voice old and terrible. Confine him there until he understands his error. Valandil stares at him, not struggling, as the wardens lay hands on his arms. Is this you speaking? He asks quietly. Or it? Isildur does not answer. When the door closes on his son, the room feels emptier than any battlefield he has ever walked. He looks down. Somehow, without his conscious will, the ring has slipped onto his finger. On the far edges of thought, watching all this through webs of malice, Sauron smiles, without lips, for if he cannot break Isildur directly, he can fray all that ties the man to goodness. The world beyond does not know yet of this fracture in the house of Elendil. It knows only that Gondor's will has hardened. In Arnor, when word reaches Valandil's council that their lord is under extended instruction in Minas Anor, concern sharpens into quiet alarm. Trusted messengers slip between the realms, carrying rumors more dire than official proclamations. Some speak of chains, some speak of persuasion. All agree that the distance between north and south has never felt greater. Elrond, receiving conflicting tidings, gathers allies. Galadriel comes, hooded, to Imladris. Círdan sends envoys. Even some among men, chieftains from the north, leaders of Rohirrim forebears, a prince of Dol Amroth, answer discreet invitations. They meet not in a grand council, but in a firelit hall, doors barred, guards loyal and few. This cannot go on, says one of the men, an old warrior whose scars map every major battle of the last alliance. We traded one master for another. At least Sauron did not pretend virtue. Elendil's son is no Sauron, another argues. He has not enslaved us. He has not built temples to the dark. He hunts evil. Elendil's son wears his weapon, Galadriel says softly, as a garment he has forgotten. It's not part of his skin. Elrond speaks at last. We must decide, he says, whether we confront him openly as equals or move in secret to take from him that which has ensnared him. Steal it? Círdan says. From the High King? Persuasion has failed, Elrond replies. He would not heed me on Orodruin, nor in letters. He has dismissed his own son's plea. Shall we wait until he has no ties left to love? Until all his strength belongs to the ring? Silence falls. The moral weight of what they consider presses down like a mountain. At last, surprisingly, the old warrior of men speaks. If I had seen, before Dagorlad, what that ring truly was, he says slowly, I would have cut through any number of oaths and courtesies to see it destroyed. You are right, Master Elrond. We delay, we drift. Men die either way. At least this path offers hope. Galadriel's eyes are distant, as if following some possibility to its end. And if we fail, she asks. Elrond's jaw tightens. Then we will have declared war on the king we raised up, he says, and all Middle-earth will pay the price. They make their choice. Not a single, decisive plot, but a many-threaded plan. Win Valandil's freedom if they can weaken the ring's influence by stealth sabotage. Isildur's tighter instruments of control seek allies among men still uncomfortable with Gondor's reach. They move like shadows, small and careful. The ring's attention is vast, but not omniscient. Still, it senses disturbance, like tugging on a web. Isildur senses it too. He orders new measures, more wardens, tighter laws. Enemies declared not only those who worship the old dark, but those who sow discord against the unity of the West. In this tightening vice, a single moment decides whether Middle-earth will bend or break. It comes, fittingly, once more by the Anduin, beneath the eaves of Lorien, where the golden leaves whisper even in still air. A small swift boat glides along the great river. In it sit Elrond, Galadriel, and a handful of trusted companions. They move under starlight, oars muffled, cloaks pulled close. Their purpose is simple, their hope slim. A whisper has reached them of a schedule. Isildur, touring the northern garrisons, will cross the Anduin near Parth Galen with a small escort, not a battle march, but a king inspecting his works, confident that his reach is security enough. On that crossing, separated for once from his strongest defenses, they mean to confront him, not with blades. With truth, we cannot match him in force, Elrond says, eyes fixed on the dark line of the western bank approaching. Nor do we wish to. If we fail to break the ring's hold by word, then nothing remains but tragedy. Galadriel rests one hand lightly on the gunwale. Even if we succeed, she says, he may die. The sundering of such a bond is no gentle thing. Elrond swallows. I know. Trees rise black against the stars. On the western side, not far distant, fires flicker. Gondorian camp lights. A small army at rest. Their boat slips into reeds. They disembark, leaving a few to guard the craft and move soundlessly toward the glow. In the Gondorian camp, wardens pace. Soldiers snore under cloaks. Isildur sits awake, as always, ink-stained at a traveling desk, reviewing reports by lamplight. He frowns. An unease pricks him, irrational, unconnected to any intelligence he has received. The ring at his hand shivers. Danger, it whispers, not in words, but in a sudden sharpening of sound, a drawing in of breath around him. He stands, a rustle at the edge of the lamplight. Who's there? He demands, hand on his sword. A figure steps forward, hood lowered. Elrond behind him. Galadriel, her presence like starlight, drawn into human form. Others half seen in shadow. For a moment, old memory crashes over new reality. Isildur sees not a potential insurgent, not a rival, but the elf who stood beside him at his coronation, who bound up his wounds, who held Valandil as an infant. Elrond, he says, voice catching. Isildur, Elrond answers quietly. We come not as enemies. Wardens along the camp's perimeter stiffen, seeing unfamiliar forms. Hands go to hilts, but something in their training holds them. They do not yet shout. We need to talk, Elrond says. Without your guards, without your wardens, without your ring. He lets the last word hang. Isildur's hand tightens on the chain at his neck. You chose a bold time, he says. His gaze flicks to Galadriel, and a bolder company. We chose, Galadriel says softly, a time when your heart might still remember us. The ring senses threat. It moves faster than thought. Suddenly, the camp, the river, the trees, all seem thin like gauze. Isildur feels power surge up his arm, through his chest, into his tongue. They come to steal what you have built. A reflex whispers inside him, wearing his own inner voice. They always feared men's strength. They will leave you weak, broken, mocked. His free hand goes to his sword. Elrond sees it. He takes a risk. He steps forward, past the lamplight, into the glow where all can see. If you must strike, strike me, he says. End the question. Prove that we were wrong to fear the ring, and that you alone among all beings can bear it uncorrupted. Isildur's blade is half drawn. His arm trembles. Camp lights seem to waver, stretching long like molten gold. The air tastes of ash and salt. He could do it. He could kill Elrond. He could slay Galadriel. He could scatter these handful of dissenters like leaves. The ring thrums with eagerness, promising speed, precision, invincibility. After that, the elven realms would be leaderless, weakened. Men would have no one to look to but him. He starts to move, but in that instant, another sound cuts through the charged air, Father Valandil's voice. He steps from the darker of the tents, flanked by two wardens who look uncertain. Valandil's hair is disheveled, eyes ringed with weariness and defiance. Isildur had not ordered him to this camp. He had kept him in Minas Anor. Sensing how things had hardened, certain wardens, men who still remembered Elendil's gentler rule, had smuggled the prince north, believing that if any could reach Isildur, it would be his son. "Father," Valandil repeats, walking between elf and man, between past and future, "if you kill them, you kill the last bridge between what you were and what you are becoming." The ring snarls, a silent seizure of thought. They chain you, they weaken you, or they free you, Valandil says, as if hearing. He looks not at the ring, not at the sword, but at his father's face. "Do you remember," he asks quietly, "telling me, when I was a boy, that power is only ever a test of how much you can restrain yourself?" Memory knifes Isildur, Valandil, small and earnest, sitting on his knee, asking why strong men cannot simply take what they want. He had answered then, with all the sincerity of a man who had lost his homeland to greed and his father to war. He had believed it. For a moment now that man surfaces. He sees with horrible clarity that every compromise he has made in the name of necessity has led him, not to some shining felicity of men, but to this, standing with sword half drawn against ancient friends, his own son pleading with him not to become the monster he once fought. He sees, as if the ring has lost its grip just for a heartbeat, all the forks where he might have turned aside. His fingers unclench, the sword slides back into its sheath. Slowly, as if it weighs the world, he lifts the chain from around his neck. His hand shakes. "Take it," he whispers. He does not know to whom he speaks, Valandil, Elrond, Galadriel, history, fate, but he holds out the ring. It gleams, small and lethal, on his palm. The air grows almost painfully sharp. Elrond steps forward, tears in his eyes, reaching, and the arrow flies. It comes from the outer darkness, from a foolish, eager warden who has decided in that fraught moment that he will be the one to save his king. He has watched these newcomers with growing dread, seen them step from shadows into his lord's circle with talk of removal, of separation. To him, it is clear, this is an assassination. He looses without thinking, every instinct honed to protect the man at the center of his new world. The arrow, meant for Elrond, misses. Isildur moves, whether driven by the ring or his own lifelong habit of shielding others, none can say. And it takes him in the side. He gasps. His hand spasms. The ring falls. Time fractures. For one terrible instant, everyone moves at once, and yet too slow. Elrond lunges for the ring. Galadriel flings up a hand, crying a word of power, slowing its fall. Valandil reaches for his father. Isildur reaches for everything. His fingers brush the gold as it tumbles. A flare of unbearable heat sears his nerves, and then the ring touches the earth. The world screams, not in sound, but in a convulsion that runs from the black roots of Orodruin to the highest peak of the misty mountains. Sauron feels it wherever his tattered spirit curls. He hurls himself, whole and desperate, toward that point of contact. The ring, no longer safely insulated by flesh, no longer buried in one man's will, flares like a bare wire in water. Power, unmediated, floods the camp. The lamplight explodes in white. For one heartbeat, all who stand there see too much. They see a wheel of fire in the void, grinding eras to dust. They see 10,000 years of will bent on order and chaos, crushing, molding, breaking, building. They see themselves tiny in that plan. Galadriel staggers, her own ring burning on her hand. Elrond falls to one knee, breath knocked from him. Valandil feels something tear in his chest, as if a hook has been dragged across his heart. At the center, Isildur hangs between. He feels Sauron slam into him like a storm. He feels the ring seize on that impact, greedy. Between the three, man, ring, and shadow, a horrible, fleeting equilibrium forms. It cannot last. Three wills, all strong, all intent, cannot share one core. Something must break. Isildur, in that fraction of a second, makes the last choice of his life. He does not cling. He lets go, not only of the ring, of the fear that without it he is nothing, of the belief that only his hand can save the world, of the pride that has armored him against counsel. He opens utterly as he has not since he first wept over Elendil's body. Into that openness, Sauron pours, expecting to find purchase, to take, to ride. Instead, he finds something like white light, a memory of towers and sun, of a boy watching waves, of a man binding a white tree sapling with his own hands and swearing that never again will men's greatness become cruelty. It is not perfect, it is scarred, twisted in places, hardened, but it is also at its core still capable of surrender. Sauron, made only to dominate, cannot understand that. He hits it, and for a moment his will shudders. In that shudder, the ring, unanchored, flares to an intensity no crafted thing can endure. It cracks, not much, just a hairline, invisible to eyes, but fatal to coherence. The binding script, once smooth and absolute, falters like a melody forgotten mid-note. Power, compressed for ages in flawless containment, leaps out through that flaw in a ragged blast. Isildur, at the center, burns like a moth in a forge. He dies without a sound, every nerve incandescent for less than a heartbeat. The ring fractures, not shatters, as it would have in Orodruin under the specific conditions of unmaking for which it was formed, but it breaks enough that no single will can ever again fully inhabit it. Enough that its perfect cycle of domination is ruined. It will not be wholly destroyed. Its pieces, some visible, some thin as dust, some no more than lingering imprints on the air, scatter. A sliver falls into the Anduin again and sinks, smaller, lesser. Another, heated almost to vapor, drifts on the wind, carried east. Another lies on the ground, a crescent of gold, dull and warped. Galadriel, recovering first, acts on instinct deeper than thought. She snatches up that crescent with the corner of her cloak, not letting it touch her skin, and hurls it into the river. It hisses as it hits the water. The warden who loosed the arrow stands frozen, bow slack in his hands, face white. Around them, soldiers rouse, shouting, blind to what has truly happened, seeing only their king collapsing, elves in their midst, strange light. Valandil cradles his father. Isildur's eyes are open. They see nothing, yet his face, in death, is peaceful. No shadow clings to it, no unseen hand tugs. Valandil weeps, out of grief, out of horror, out of relief, that the man he loved died himself, not a puppet. Later, tales will differ. Some will say that Elrond and Galadriel came to slay the king and failed. Some will say that they came to save him and succeeded only in unmaking his weapon. Some will whisper that Isildur at the last chose the west over the shadow. All will agree that from that night, nothing in Middle-earth is quite the same. The immediate aftermath is chaos. Gondorian soldiers, confused and afraid, clash with elven guards. Blows are exchanged. Blood is shed. But Valandil, voice ragged, stands on a rock and shouts until his throat is raw, "Lay down your arms! By my father's blood, labor enough has been spent on war." His grief carries authority. Elrond raises his hands, chanting words of peace in a tongue older than men's kingdoms. Slowly, blades lower. On the riverbank, in the dawn's first gray, they lay Isildur out, the high king of men, conqueror of Mordor, bearer of the ring, lies wrapped in a simple cloak, his body unadorned. Galadriel looks down at him, her gaze unreadable. He was never meant to bear so much, she says softly. None of us were, Elrond answers. They burn him on a pyre of clean wood, with honor and with sorrow. Elves and men together for all the bitter politics that will follow. Valandil takes his father's crown. He does not take his father's path. In Gondor, the wardens find themselves suddenly leaderless. Some double down, calling for strength, for order, for pursuing what they claim were Isildur's final visions. Others, shaken by the sight of their king's end and by the almost palpable lifting of a weight they did not know they felt, hesitate. The empire he forged does not dissolve overnight. Too many structures are in place, too many captains, too many laws, too many conquered peoples whose lives now depend on predictability. Yet the sharpest edge is gone. Without the ring's constant, insistent push, without Sauron's lurking, will amplifying ambition, the machinery of tyranny slows. Valandil, crowned both in Arda and invited, by some reluctantly, by others with desperate hope, to take up rule in Gondor, chooses a different stance. He does not dismantle everything his father built. He cannot. The world has moved on, and to tear it all down would throw countless lives into chaos. But he begins to loosen. The black bands on wardens' arms are outlawed. The most invasive decrees are repealed. Conquered lands are offered. Again, true alliance. This time, with the option to refuse at cost, but without annihilation. There are rebellions. There is blood. Some men who grew powerful under Isildur's hard order do not yield their influence peacefully. There are skirmishes in the streets of Minas Anor, uprisings in garrisoned towns, assassinations attempted and thwarted, yet the tide slowly turns. The ring's fragments still work mischief. That sliver borne east on the wind eventually settles in a lonely, bitter land, where a minor warlord, ambitious, perceptive, angry at Gondor's heavy hand, finds a curious, half-melted scrap of gold among the ashes of some forgotten shrine. He begins in time to dream, not of a great eye, not of a tower, but of a throne of rusted iron on a blasted plain. He will never be Sauron, but his cruelty will have an edge others lack. In some dark hollow of Mirkwood, Sauron's diminished spirit gathers about this ember, hoping always to find a way back into the center of the world's design. He never again has a perfect vessel. The elven rings, briefly seared by the ring's convulsion, dim, but do not go out. Galadriel feels Lorien's timelessness falter for a decade, sees a few leaves fall that would have stayed golden a little longer. Elrond feels Imladra's protective veils thin and reweave. They adapt. The world's magic, once braided tightly through one central strand, becomes more scattered, harder to grasp, safer perhaps in its diffuseness. Ordinary folk notice little day to day. They see instead policies shift. In a village on the edge of Khand, the same young woman who once watched her brother marched away under Gondorian banners watches a new delegation arrive, not with demands but with offers, joint patrols, mutual grain storage, shared markets. She has learned not to trust promises. Yet when her brother returns, older, scarred but not broken, and speaks tiredly of a prince who listened to his complaints, she feels something like the first hesitant stirring of hope. In Minas Anor, the white tree is still dead, but Valandil, remembering a story Elrond told him of a sapling in the snow, sends northward a small secret expedition. Years later, they return, bearing a young tree with silver bark and small, tight buds. He plants it not in triumph, but in remembrance. Hands dirty, cloak plain. The shadow under its branches is cool. Children play there in Imladris. Elrond stands once more with Galadriel and Círdan. We prevented a dark lord enthroned in the hearts of men, Círdan says slowly. But we did not prevent darkness altogether. We never could, Galadriel answers. Darkness is born in choice. As long as any mind can decide between mercy and self, there will be shadows. What, then, was the point? Elrond asks quietly, still haunted by Isildur's face in that last light. Fear, then peace, then nothing. If tyranny rises in little lords, if cruelty persists in corners, if Sauron's seeds still sprout, what did we buy with his life? A chance, Galadriel says. Not for a painless age, but for one in which no single will holds all others in its fist. Elrond exhales. A chance is small. Small is what the free have always had, she replies. Even in the face of Valar, of Sauron, of sea and fire, it has been enough so far. Years pass. Songs are written of Isildur the just, Isildur the proud, Isildur ring-bearer, Isildur ring-breaker. Different tongues, different emphasis. No single story wins entirely. Some remember him as Tyrant, some as savior, most as both. Middle-earth, under a less strangled Gondor, staggers toward a kind of uneasy balance. Elves begin slowly to leave, not in a single great departure, but in trickles. Here, a ship from the Grey Havens carrying a handful of Noldor. There, a small company from Lorien slipping west. They see the world changing, men taking center stage, shadows cropping up in new shapes, and they choose, at last, the long peace denied to Númenor. Men remain. They argue in councils. They fight wars, some just, some needless. They build and break and build again. No one wears the one ring. Pieces of it lie buried in mud and memory, their power scattered across 1,000 small choices, a lord deciding whether to use fear or patience, a general weighing glory against cost, a king's son standing between his father and a blade. Middle-earth, in this timeline, does not know a second Sauron rising in Barad-dûr. It knows something messier, a century of strong rule hardening toward empire, checked at the last moment by love and luck, and an arrow loosed too soon. In the end, the tyranny that might have been total becomes fragmented, no less dangerous to those near it, but unable to blanket the world. On a quiet evening, years after Isildur's death, Valandil walks alone along the walls of Minas Anor. He is older now, beard threaded with gray, shoulders bearing the invisible weight of rulership. He stops before the white tree, now in timid blossom, and looks east. The Ephel Dúth are dark against a reddening sky. Beyond them, Mordor lies mostly empty, its forges cold, its plains slowly, painfully greening in patches. No great light has banished it. No final victory has erased its stain. It remains like a scar. So this is the age of men, he says softly, not sure whether he speaks to the tree, to the memory of his father, or to the listening air. We are all we have now. No dark lord to blame, no great king to absolve us, only us. The wind off the mountains is cool. He closes his eyes and sees, unbidden, his father's face in that final camp light. Conflicted, then clear. The moment when he had reached, not for power, but for release. Thank you, Valandil whispers, for that single, crucial letting go. Far below, in the lower circles, a child laughs, chasing another around a market stall. A dispute breaks out over a fish. Somewhere, a warden, now called simply a captain of the guard, chooses whether to step in with a warning or a blow. In a distant, nameless valley, A minor lord sharpens his sword and dreams of iron thrones. In Dol Guldur, a shadow watches and waits, thinner than smoke, patient as rot. The white tree's petals stir. Above the city, the first stars appear, one by one. None burns like a flaming eye. All are only points of cold fire, watching remote. Tomorrow, there will be arguments in the council chamber. Riders will bring news of border skirmishes. A caravan from Khand will arrive with spices. An old woman will tell a child a story about a ring that once could command the world. The child will ask, "Where is it now?" And the old woman will smile a little sadly and say, "Broken, like the pride of the one who wore it. And like pride, its pieces are still sharp, if you pick them up carelessly." In the vaults beneath the citadel, among dust and forgotten scrolls, there lies a small glass vial. Inside it, wrapped in cloth, rests a grain of something that looks almost like gold, almost like ash. No one living remembers exactly what it is. No one has touched it in many years. It waits, faint and inert, like a question without an answer. Outside, under the paling sky, the white tree shivers, and a single petal falls, landing on cold stone and lying there bright and fragile, as if the world is forever balanced between what was, what is, and what might yet have been.